Never a truer word, where we're looking at The Watcher. We've just finished watching episode 4 live. So let's have a dig into what it was that The Watcher was all about, shall we? I have done all my talking on The Watcher. I want to hear from you now. So if you have comments on it, then do let me know what it is that you think The Watcher wants, who you think The Watcher is, and just generally what is going on with The Watcher. You've heard all my thoughts, apart from one, which I'm holding back, but I'd be really interested in your thoughts on The Watcher. Who is The Watcher? What did they want with the Broaddusses? Where did they come from? All that all that stuff is what I'd really like to hear from you guys. So do let me know in the comments and we'll share them as we go. But the big thing for me came in the fourth episode, or the fourth letter from The Watcher, which I did not realize at the time, but let's have a look at that. And letter 4 is the one that begins, violent winds and bitter cold to the vile and spiteful Derek and his wench of a wife, Maria. You wonder who the Watcher is. Turn around, idiots. Maybe you even spoke to me, one of the so-called neighbors who has no idea who the Watcher could be. Or maybe you do know, you're too scared to tell anyone. I walked by the news trucks when they took over my neighborhood and mocked me. I watched as you watched me from the dark house in an attempt to find me. Telescopes and binoculars are wonderful inventions. 657 Boulevard survived your attempted assault and stood strong with its army of supporters barricading its gates. My soldiers of the Boulevard followed my orders to a T. They carried out their mission and saved the soul of 657 Boulevard with my orders. All hail the Watcher. 657 Boulevard is turning on me. It's coming after me. I don't understand why. What spell did you cast on it? It used to be my friend. Now it's my enemy. I am in charge of 657 Boulevard. It is not in charge of me. I will fend off its bad things and wait for it to become good again. It will not punish me. I will rise again. I will be patient and wait for this to pass. And for you to bring the young blood back to me. 65 Boulevard needs young blood. It needs you. Come back. And that's the key bit. Let the young blood play again like I once did. Let the young blood sleep in 657 Boulevard. Stop changing. Let it alone. Maybe a car accident, maybe a fire, maybe something as simple as a mild illness that never seems to go away but makes you feel sick day after day after day after day after day. Maybe the mysterious death of a pet. Loved ones suddenly die. Planes and cars and bicycles crash. Bones break. You are despised by the house and the Watcher won. And it's the come back bit that I didn't notice. Statement analysis is never finished, but you can see it there, this come back bit. And I said at the time, like, this was the end of their contact with the Broaddusses. Well, why would that be? Because if they were a family friend, someone known to the Broaddusses, a relative or anything like that, then they would not care where the Broaddusses moved to. They could go and annoy them at their new address. Or if they stayed in the house they had before, or wherever they are, they could annoy the Broaddusses. But with the Broaddusses not moving into 657 Boulevard and renting out to another couple, they had no way now of contacting the Broaddusses at all. So this was someone who has no close connection to the Broaddusses in any way at all. They knew they lived at 657 Boulevard, or they bought 657 Boulevard, but once they moved on from there, they had no idea whatsoever. Right, so what are your comments? Let me see what people have got. Sheila says, I'm a bit confused with the letters to the previous owners from The Watcher. Now, as far as I know, there was one letter to the previous owners, which seemed to be from The Watcher, but they disregarded it. They thought it was a crank or put it in the bin. That's as far as I know. There was just one letter there. But Erica has a point here. In the later lawsuit, supposedly the old owners did confirm they got one, but said they threw it away. No one knows for sure yet. Have not seen anything concrete on that one originally there. Sheila, again, I was convinced it was someone whose parents worked in the house years ago. Now, Sheila, I'm not on board with that one at all, because these were anonymous letters. So the whole point of anonymous letters is not revealing your identity. So when they did things like said their father watched the house, their grandfather watched the house, they used to run in the house in the 60s, I didn't think that at all, because that would reveal their identity in some way. It would not be so hard to go back and see who used to own the house, who used to hang around the house, which children would be around the house in the 60s. So I thought that was all a little bit far-fetched. I thought that came very much from the literary thing that we saw, that the person enjoyed concocting stories and had watched a lot of horror films or read a lot of horror books, or both. And I think that's why they spoke about that being around the house. Colette, this is a bit frantic and desperate and somewhat delusional. Is that me, or is that the Watcher? Yeah, the Watcher towards the end got frantic when they realized that contact with the Broaddusses was being broken off. And that's why I do think what they wanted was a sort of connection with the Broaddusses. They wanted potentially David, I think, to reach out and go, are you the person sending me these letters? So they could have that contact again. Kay Jones, was the purpose to stop them moving in? If so, who would want to do that? I don't know. I don't think so, Kay Jones. I think they really wanted the Broaddusses actually to move in because they could keep having that contact with them. They knew where the Broaddusses were. They could drive past and see dumpsters and so on. Helen, it was a colleague or ex of Derek. Helen, I don't know if you mean like current colleague, ex-colleague, or ex in the relationship sense of Derek that he had an affair with. He promised to leave his wife and didn't. If Mr. Broaddus is watching, I'd just like to say these are not my words. They belong to a commenter, so you can sue that person and not me. He promised to leave his wife and didn't, maybe even got her pregnant, used knowledge of horror movies to deliver these letters. And Helen, not that far from what I think. And Colette is there as well. Sage Things, I think it was someone who loves writing above all else. I would agree with you a lot there, Sage, that the Watcher did enjoy writing, although the first ones seemed quite carefully crafted. Letters 1 and 2 did seem quite carefully crafted. 3 and 4 got a little bit more like a stream of consciousness. They didn't seem to have the fear factor. Someone, and we may come to this at some point, someone commented that the whole list of things, that maybe a car accident, maybe a there was no direct threat in them, but it was kind of like trying to create a bit of fear by saying, maybe if you get ill, you'll think of me, almost to want that connection to go on, even though they knew the connection wasn't going to go on. Pammy, it certainly sounds like an old lover of Derek's, except the prior owner's letter issue. If true, yeah, I agree there. Syra says, yeah, ex of Derek or wanted Derek. I think wanted, Syra, might be kind of more in the, it might be an unrequited sort of attention seeking. The Sellers, the Woods realtor, is my top guess, says Erica. I wouldn't be averse to that one, Erica. We saw a lot of language around houses, and not just the fact the house existed as a concept in this person's mind, but we saw it was always referred to as the address. They kind of knew what renovations were going on and so on, like they had an eye for that kind of thing. A couple of slips in the language as well. Talks about good move a lot, which move is a concept in real estate. And also, as someone mentioned in the live chat for episode 4, the phrase where the Watcher uses let it be rather than leave it be. Well, let, again, is a real estate term, isn't it? Leave it be would be kind of leave it alone. Always leave it alone. That's what would be the normal phrase, leave it alone. But they said let it alone, which is a real estate phrase. Eyes on Lies, the come back to me is not about the family, it's about control. Yeah, very, very possible. Sarah, I think as a female, someone Derek hurt their feelings. Yeah, I mean, we haven't spoken about much of thinking it's a male. I do think just about everything leads to female that we see there. But apart from the way the children were described as young blood, I found quite visceral for female language, although they didn't threaten the children at all. If you noticed in the letters, they wanted the children close to them, and they thought of the children sleeping. So that was, I do think it was female, but the young blood referring to the children was the only thing that made me think, could it be a male? Eyes on Lies agrees with Helen, which was the potentially libelous one. So, Derek, if you want to sue, then you could sue Eyes on Lies and Helen as well. Erica says, what I get stuck on is the knowledge of sending the first letter before the sales was public record, and they couldn't follow them after they left. So, lots of people saying this could be something to do with the realtor that was involved in the house sale. And it really, really could be. But if you look, their knowledge of the Broaddusses was wafer thin. They knew the names, didn't just mention anything about their history. If you were trying to freak them out, you would try and drop in a something. You know, Derek, are you still a member of such and such a gym? Or Derek, do you think about me when you go to the gym and name the gym that Derek goes to? Or, you know, when you guys go on your next vacation to Mexico, then the house is going to be all alone and I'll be watching it for you. that would really creep them out to put in a little bit of personal knowledge like that. But really, they knew the names, and they knew the names of the children, and some of the things you could see from the outside of the house while the work was being done. Potentially they were just, I thought a lot of that stuff you could get from Facebook, social media, Instagram, or so on. So potentially they mentioned on a post on Facebook, hey, just bought our dream home, or just seen the home that we want to buy. It's whatever. The other thing I did think was they knew the names of the kids, and they knew how often the Broaddus's or Mrs. Broaddus called the kids names, or whatever it was. That's something that happens on a real estate visit, isn't it? When you're doing a house viewing and the kids are misbehaving and it's one of those stressful situations. So you might start shouting at the kids if you take them on one of those. So that would take me to real estate as well. This is Sage Historical Society. A person tied to the building department probably went to the planning board interested from the point of sale. Colette says the drama has somewhat Old Testament in its tone. You're probably a better expert than me on that one, Colette. I do wonder if it's someone who is overly religious. I mean, the judgmentalness there, I'm not saying people who are religious are judgmental, but I'm thinking, like I said, it's that sort of mother-in-law tone. Sorry, all mother-in-laws that are take any offense to there, but that's slightly old-fashioned, judgmental, you're not bringing up your children right sort of tone that was there. Would fit in, I think, with someone of something of that religious persuasion. Eyes on Lies. What if it's someone mentally ill and the fourth letter was written by that person's watcher? You're not the first person to say, what did one person write all the letters, because it changes over time. I do think it's one letter because there is a bit of flow and sequence in them. Letter 1's quite casual, introductory. Letter 2 gets more threatening. Letter 3 was quite short, and letter 4 was very direct. But letter 3 let on that they knew this was about to end soon. Colette, rather than being a horror movie fan, not a particularly female interest. I know that's somewhat sexist. Yeah, I think a lot of women like Stephen King type books and misery type films. So I'm not sure that one is. I was going to say is accurate. That sounds like I'm really putting it down there. Thank you for your comment, Colette. Sage, why would he lose so much from an affair? Don't know. You kind of have to there. Now we're into do women watch horror as a discussion. Eyes on Lies only watches horror movies if I'm on a date with someone I want to hug. So slightly too late for me, but might have thought about that in my younger days. Colette, what business is Derek in? Oh, I did know this. I think they mentioned it in the Consult podcast, which is where I got the idea for doing this series. So I should credit the Consult podcast. I'm sure it did mention there about what business he was in, but I'm afraid I don't know off the top of my head. Jody joining from the USA. What's the discussion about? Jody, it's about The Watcher, which is you might know it from Netflix, where it was a series, but it's based on a true life story of an anonymous letter sender. So that is what this is about. We've looked over the past 4 weeks at the 4 letters the Watcher sent to this couple to try and scare them. And so we're now looking at everyone's comments and theories on that. Sage says, I think he was in finance. Yes, Sage, finance, insurance springs to my mind as well there. And Kate Jones, would the restrictive view of the easel point to a neighbor? That's a really interesting one. So the Watcher does mention in a letter that he saw one of the children, and maybe even mentioned by name that the Watcher saw one of the children on the porch using an easel, a bit of artistry. And apparently this could not be seen from the road. My only thought on that is, yeah, it could point to a neighbor, but it could also be something maybe they put on social media or mentioned to someone. There is a lot of there's something called a Barnum statement, which is when you say to someone something, they immediately think you how do you know that? Oh, you can't possibly know that, whereas actually it's like basically a really good guess or a really educated guess. So it could be something like that. Sage, the one letter the Watcher asked, are you a transplant? Yeah, are you a transplant from Hoboken? I've seen some interesting comments on that. Eyes on Lies, does mental illness run through Derek or Maria? I don't know on that one. Erica, I've heard the term young blood referring to younger men in a non-threatening way. Yes, more like a slang type of term. Not sure if it could possibly be related. It sounds bad to say it about kids, though. It does. Also, young blood is used to in things like sport or arts culture. Talking about young blood means new performers, new talent coming through. It's freshness thing. It's a good thing, you know. With the football club has young blood, or some great young blood coming through, or things like that. Yeah, I have heard it used in that term as well. Sage, the first letter mentioned doors and windows and walls as if they all hide secrets. I think that was just a sort of literary flourish, Sage. I think they were just trying to scare by saying the walls have secrets. I've got a wall behind me. I could say that wall has secrets. Don't know if it does or not, but if someone told me the wall behind you has secrets, I might look at it a little bit different. Eyes on Lies. One of the couple could be writing it to get control over the other. That was one of the early thoughts from the consult guys when they started looking at it. Was it something about the Broaddus's trying to get like a good deal or money off or some compensation for something to try and get some money back from the couple that they bought the house from? I don't think so, though. Sheila, did Derek write letters to his neighbors after he left? I bet Derek is never writing a letter in his life. I've seen Wicked Little Letters, a movie on Netflix, says Jody. It's more than I have, I'm afraid. Eyes on Lies. The Watcher is in the house. The Watcher has secrets. I don't think the Watcher was in that house once. The things the Watcher said about the house, it's got a basement. Well, we all know where the basement of a house is. The bedrooms are on the first floor. Yep, that's where bedrooms in houses tend to be, especially in 2 or 3 story houses. I don't think the Watcher was ever once in that house. Shall we have a look at some of the comments that came in? Greenie was talking about, was it an overprotective ex-nanny who sacrificed their children? I don't think it was anything like that whatsoever. I did, because I do not think the Watcher had been in that house once. That Rosie, I really like this one. The writer seems to think like he is waiting to be found out like a game. Yeah, I think that's true. I think it was a call for attention, or a cry for help, or something like that, hoping that the Broaddus that they were targeting, Derek, I believe, turned round and went, "Is this you writing these letters? Is this you? Is this you trying to get some attention from me?" In the hope that they got some attention from Derek. Got a comment here from Colette. Young blood could also refer to new employees in an office. Yeah, perhaps the Watcher was once themselves referred to as young blood at Derek's firm, but it still makes me think of miscarriage. Me as well, Colette. It does for me as well. I really like this one from number one. I love the username Lisa Healthy Hair. Says she has a relative who calls houses by their address as well. I said this was something that seemed a bit strange to me, that the Watcher called the house by the address, 657 Boulevard. She doesn't say, "Are we going to city to visit?" She always uses the number and street name of everyone's houses. It always sounded odd to me. And I asked Lisa, what does this relative do for a living? And she said, I've given it some thought. She has no connection to real estate, delivery services, construction, or anything of that sort. She's an elementary school teacher. So, yeah, she said, I just talked it up to having a different manner of speaking. Veg says, this person comes from a family of stalkers, so it's learned behavior. Got one here from Martina who says, as far as I remember, there was one theory. It could be the person who wanted to buy the house but didn't get it. Yeah, it could. I mean, the real estate does seem to have some foundation in all of this. Forrest, maybe the Watcher is someone who once lived in that home and somehow lost control of it, non-payment, etc. They seem to know about the inside of the house as well as the outside. They didn't know anything about the inside. They just mentioned basement and bedrooms. Not even anything about, say, the position of the kitchen or that it was the lounge window that looked out onto the road. They didn't mention anything about the house at all. Victoria, I'm liking your theory of possible realtor being the Watcher. That would be a brilliant yet diabolical way to purchase this renovated home at a big discount. Could be. I mean, yeah. There's more detail about the family than the house itself. There is, although the detail on the family was also very, very sketchy. And Sinead, I concur. I believe it's a woman, one that criticizes judges, leads you to believe that she likes children but does not. This person has gone out of their way to suggest they may pass the house, be a neighbor, etc., pushing that narrative too much, in my opinion. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't believe they live as close as they're trying to let on. This person is doing their level best to instill fear, panic, paranoia, and doing it by targeting the children. Let's look at some of the comments that have just come in. Ashy Snow says, in a 2022 Vanity Fair article, the previous owners read a letter days before they moved out. I assume that means after the sale was complete. If Derek and Maria shared the same on social media. Could be. Another is on the way. Eyes on the lies. Another is on the way. That's a clue to Derek. That's a clue to Derek as to who it is. It could be. I mean, we might go back and look at letter 4 again and just see, because there's a desperation in that letter, to see if there's anything that could be a kind of coded clue to Derek. Some more of the comments here. I love this one. Someone has two. I'm curious if the mail carrier has been looked at, especially if one of their family members also worked for the post office. They'd know quite a bit about the family just by the type of mail they receive. They'd also know about previous owners. Oftentimes, mail is forwarded to a new address and held until new people have moved in, including names of the children if they're being registered for school or get kids' magazines, etc. A mail carrier is often on the porch, if not in the house, when delivering large or heavy packages. Just a thought. Certainly we go with the person who really is focused on addresses. Forrest, the watcher, mentions hearing the children's names being called a lot, and also mentions the dumpster, cars being unloaded, etc. All of these could be observed by simply walking by the property. There's a lot of references to the room locations, which could only be determined if a person had once been inside, or maybe simply looked up building plans for the house. Knowing the children's order of birth could perhaps be obtained online. Mentioning the last family kindly sold is quite odd. I don't think people sell their homes to be kind exactly. The number of years between the generations is strange. If the grandfather watched in the 20s and the son watched in the 60s, and finally the watcher is watching in 2000, all of them were born very late in their families. The constant mention of greed is a strange thing. Yes, it is. Colette has Derek's work. Derek worked for Allied World Insurance. So yeah, financial insurance. I thought that was where he worked. Candy, whoa, letter 4 took a turn. Sounds to me like the writer is angry and that the intimate little thing they thought they had going on with the Broadus family, or more likely, one of the adults, has been exposed and shared to the media. The writer seems to have some sort of trauma around embarrassment and the shame in the past, and this has been triggered by the media mocking them. They also sound like they are becoming a bit unhinged. I'm sensing a mental illness vibe. Yeah, I would agree with you there. But someone who hides it well and or is medicated, possibly forgets not to take it all the time. Can't wait for your analysis. Well, here it all is. Rosie, okay, hear me out. It's going to get weird. The watcher does make an implied call to action for them to pay attention to their kids. Agreed, there is no explicit call to action. I said that was one of the very interesting things, that there wasn't any, if you don't do this, then I will do that, or I will do that until you stop doing this. There was nothing like that, but there is that implicit pay attention to your kids. The watcher was a babysitter in that house at one point and resented the parents who employed her. Rosie, don't think the watcher has ever been in the house whatsoever. That made her think she deserved the great house more than them, and imagined herself owning it. Never married, no kids of her own. She now tries to make the current owners do what she once imagined herself doing as a parent and owner of such a fabulous home. She's living vicariously through the house. Could be. Like, we've got 5 more minutes. So if you've got any last thoughts on who the watcher is, now is the time to get them in the comments and we'll go through them. Missy, excuse me, let me take a drink. Missy says the house had recently been for sale. It's very easy to find pictures of online and have a general idea of layout, basement and attic. Yeah, the watcher was very good at looking as if they'd been very close to the house, but the information they shared could have come from many places. Lily, I'm wondering if the watcher was a playmate of children who lived there, or a parent who worked at the house. So much envy and a lot of malice. Peeved, I've always thought the writer might have been a parent who worked in the house for the owners at some point. As such, maybe they did roam the halls as a child. I don't think so, but I've said that enough times, haven't I? Maybe they aspired to own the home themselves, but knew they never could. Look, it is a possibility. Having said that, I really like the idea of this being someone involved in real estate. I suppose the two things are not necessarily mutually exclusive. Yeah, I think we've got lots of things going on. I think if you bring two of them together, you probably have the Watcher. Forrest says, you have to feel the Watcher is occupying themselves with whatever they can glimpse of the house and the family. They ask, where have you been? Which would indicate that they are aware there has been an absence. One telling thing in the third letter is that the Watcher states, I roamed the halls, and mentions the 1960s as the time this occurred. That would put the Watcher's age at approximately 60 to 65 years of age. The fourth letter is definitely the crackerjack of them all. Can't wait for you taking the fourth letter. This series has been really enjoyable. Thank you. Rosie, the paragraph mentioning all sorts of bad things that can happen as a person seems like an attempt to make them attribute anything bad that does happen to the Watcher. She wants to be remembered. That's what the comment I was referring to earlier. I think that is a really smart point. This was the desperation in the last letter. I'm not going to be able to contact you anymore, so I want to leave that lasting impression. I want you to think of me at some point. And then we have Forrest, finally. I hadn't thought that perhaps the Watcher was an ex of Derek. The last letter seems very angry in tone, maybe because the party is over for the Watcher. The mention of telescopes and binoculars was interesting, but then I thought about Google Maps, all the things you can see by repeatedly checking a location with it. This has been an enjoyable way to spend a morning going through these 4 episodes. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Forrest, for that. So, any last comments? We've got a couple of minutes left. Colette says they also insure properties, which could explain the way the Watcher refers to the house by the address. So if he works for an insurance company, yeah, and I said I think the Watcher has a job that involves addresses. If it's home insurance, my God, that involves addresses, which would infer maybe someone at Derek's work. It's maybe someone at Derek's work that has a crush on him, that is not going to put a note on his desk at work because they could get caught, but find out where he lived. Could be, or someone he's annoyed at work or something like that. Eyes on Lies. Did I miss the part about how the Watcher can't have been inside the house? Yes, I've mentioned it lots. Not they can't have been inside the house. They may have been inside the house, but nothing they write suggests they have been in the house at all. There's not one thing. If you were in my house for 5 minutes, you would be able to tell me things about my house that only people who had been inside my house would know. Like, is my kitchen large? Is my kitchen small? You don't know because you've not been inside my house, and the Watcher does not know anything about what's inside the house. They don't mention the hall that runs from the front door to the back door, if there was one, for example. They don't mention the fact, is it a spiral staircase? Is there a flight of stairs that's got a turn in it or anything like that? They don't mention anything at all, Eyes on Lies, that could only have come from being inside the house. And Erica, I wonder if it could have been a realtor that the family was going to go with, but then switched to another, mad about the missed commission and took it very personally. I mean, it really, really could be. I do think that real estate is involved in this in some way. If Derek does work for a company that does home insurance, and that's not something I considered up until this point, then that would really hang together. Right. That's it. Half an hour, I think, on the entire Watcher series. Thank you so much for all your comments on this live, and thank you so much for all the comments that we have seen on all the episodes as they've gone out. It's been so much fun to do. As I always say, statement analysis never ends. So if I spot anything else about the Watcher, keep an eye on the socials, keep an eye on the YouTube community, and I will share anything that I spot if I look at these again and again and again. Erica says, just one last comment. Thanks, LOL. I hope one day we find out. So do I. Wouldn't that be interesting if the Watcher case got solved? And if it does get solved, I don't read news very much. So if it does get solved, do let me know. Neveratruerword.com is the website where you can find how to get hold of me on the socials and let me know. Thank you very much, Sheila. Sheila has been there for every single Watcher episode, and we really appreciate Sheila. I'm sure others have been there for the episodes as well. But yes, thank you very much, Sheila. That's been great. Right. That is it. Thank you for being with me, and we will see you soon for something new from Never a Truer Word.